It happened quietly, without thunder or warning, without any sign that heaven had just changed everything. No lightning flashed, no angel appeared before your eyes, yet something deep within you shifted in a way that words still can't describe. You can feel it even now, that strange weight in the atmosphere, that holy stillness wrapped in mystery. It's like the air itself has been rewritten, like time slowed for a moment just to let heaven turn the page. For so long, you've been fighting in silence, standing in storms that no one else could see. You were the one who smiled while your heart trembled, who kept faith when all the evidence said it was over. You thought you were losing. You thought the waiting meant God forgot you. But the truth is, heaven was writing while you were crying. Every tear was a line in your new story. Every heartbreak was ink in the hands of the divine. You didn't know it then, but your surrender became the sound that reached the highest realms. It wasn't when you shouted or prayed the loudest. It was that quiet whisper in the middle of the night when you said, "God, I can't do this anymore, but if you still want me, I'm yours." That sentence, born out of exhaustion and pain, shifted everything. You didn't lose, you transformed. You didn't fall apart. You were unmade so heaven could remake you. The very moment you let go of how you thought your story should look, heaven began to rewrite the ending. You were never losing a battle. You were shifting one. And the battle you shifted wasn't outside of you. It was within. Because once your heart surrendered, the war was already won. You thought the victory would come through a miracle, but it came through your silence, through your refusal to turn bitter, through your decision to trust even when you saw no reason to. That's when the energy changed. That's when heaven leaned in and said, "Now I can move." For months, maybe years, you felt trapped in a cycle of pain, disappointment, and confusion. You begged for clarity, but got silence. You prayed for signs, but got shadows. And yet, that's when the rewrite was happening, not in the light, but in the dark. Because heaven doesn't write in daylight, heaven writes in mystery. When you stopped trying to make sense of everything, when you simply said, "I still believe," even when nothing made sense, you gave heaven permission to finish what had been started long before you were born. You see, your story was never about loss. It was about alignment. The delay wasn't denial, it was design. You were never forgotten. You were being refined. Every unanswered prayer was a redirection. Every no was a divine negotiation on your behalf. The things you thought were setbacks were actually the ink strokes of a greater plot. There are moments when God hides his hand so your faith can stand, when he lets the storm rage so you can learn the sound of his whisper. And you, chosen one, have learned that sound. You can recognize it now, not in thunder, not in miracles, but in stillness. Because now you've learned that when heaven goes quiet, it's not punishment, it's preparation. It's heaven rewriting the pages you outgrew. And though you don't yet see the full story, you can feel it. That inner trembling that something new is rising, that subtle confidence that says, "I survived what was meant to destroy me." You're stepping into a season where your scars become symbols, where your pain becomes prophecy. The silence that broke you is actually the sound of God working beneath the surface. You were never abandoned in that stillness. You were being edited by the author himself. Every time you thought, "It's over," heaven whispered, "I'm not done." Every time you thought, "I failed," heaven said, "You evolved." That's why lately you've felt strange, not broken, not the same, just different. The things that used to shake you no longer do. The people who once defined your worth no longer hold power. You're not who you were a year ago or even a month ago, and that's because your spirit finally outgrew your past storyline. Heaven saw that, and the script had to change. You were written for a higher frequency now, a deeper purpose, a bolder destiny. That's why the old season couldn't hold you. You've been feeling detached, disinterested, and out of place, not because you're lost, but because you've shifted realms. The old you couldn't survive where you're going. The old connections couldn't carry the weight of what's coming. You were never rejected, you were released. Every closed door was divine editing. Every person who walked away was an unneeded character in this new chapter. You think they abandoned you, but they were simply written out by the author because their part was done. You don't need to chase what heaven removed. The silence after separation isn't emptiness, it's sacred space. That's where the rewrite begins, where your heart becomes blank paper for heaven's hand. You've been feeling the stillness, not as punishment, but as pause, a divine breath before the breakthrough. And if you listen closely, you'll feel it. Something in your spirit that's not afraid anymore. You've cried all the tears. You've questioned all the questions. You've carried all the weight. And now, something in you whispers, enough. That whisper isn't defeat, it's divine readiness. Because heaven doesn't move when you're desperate. Heaven moves when you're ready. And now you are. You've been trained through silence, tested through patience, and purified through pain. You are no longer in the old war. You have shifted dimensions. You have become the weapon, the answer, the fulfillment. Heaven has rewritten your story, but you're not meant to read it. You're meant to live it. This is why everything feels so unfamiliar. You're walking on pages that didn't exist before. The pain that once held you no longer owns you. The memories that used to haunt you now heal you. And the same God who seemed distant is suddenly within you, breathing through your calm. The world around you may not see it yet, but heaven already knows. You shifted the entire battle. You didn't just survive, you altered the outcome. You changed the vibration of your destiny. You turned pain into prophecy, tears into transformation, loss into language. And as you sit in the quiet, feeling both empty and full, confused yet peaceful, know this: the rewrite has already begun, and the next line belongs to you. The page is blank, but the ink is divine, and heaven's hand is still writing your name. The story that once felt like suffering is about to become the proof of your sacred strength. This is not the end, chosen one. This is the new beginning. The silence wasn't punishment. It was heaven's way of saying, watch what I write next. You see, when heaven begins to rewrite your story, it rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with fireworks or a sudden wave of relief. It starts in the quiet, in that deep part of your soul that suddenly refuses to be broken by the same things that once tore you apart. That's where you are now, in that sacred space between endings and beginnings, where everything looks still but everything is shifting. You feel it, don't you? The subtle disconnection from what used to define you. The friendships that suddenly feel hollow. The ambitions that no longer excite you. The need to prove yourself fading like mist at sunrise. It's not depression. It's divine disinterest. Heaven is detoxing you from the vibrations of your old season, removing the hunger for validation that once kept you bound. You thought isolation meant God left you, but in truth, He was hiding you. Just like Joseph was hidden in a pit before he was revealed to a palace, your solitude has been divine protection. You were too valuable to be seen prematurely, too anointed to be handled by unready hands. That's why everything felt like rejection. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection wrapped in disguise. Heaven closed those doors because you would have walked into rooms built for the old you, not the evolved one. Every moment of isolation was heaven saying, wait, your story's still being written. Don't expose the rough draft. You had to be alone so your spirit could unlearn the noise, so your intuition could finally speak louder than your fear. The strange quiet around you is not emptiness, it's construction. Heaven is building something that cannot be rushed, and sometimes construction sounds like silence. You've been asking, why does it feel like no one understands me anymore? Because you're no longer speaking the language of your old season. You're not vibrating on the same frequency as the people you once depended on. They were characters in your old script, and that chapter is closed. When heaven rewrites your story, it removes the need for witnesses. You were meant to be misunderstood. Like Elijah in the wilderness, you were called to eat divine bread alone, because what's being fed to you isn't for everyone. The stillness you feel isn't punishment. It's the breath of God hovering over your life, preparing the next miracle. There's an invisible war that has been raging around you, not in the physical, but in the spiritual. You felt it in sudden waves of exhaustion, in unexpected anxiety that hits you from nowhere, in nights where you wake up for no reason with your heart racing. You thought it was stress or coincidence, but no, it was warfare. The unseen realm has been active because you carry something that threatens darkness itself. And the most powerful shift happened not when you fought back with anger or fear, but when you decided to stay still. Evil feeds on reaction, and when you refused to react, you starved it. You broke the rhythm of the enemy's attacks by choosing peace. The moment you stopped matching energy and started maintaining energy, heaven tilted the scales in your favor. You didn't win the war with words or weapons. You won it with silence, with endurance, with love. You shifted the battle without shouting a single prayer of revenge, and that's what broke the pattern. The enemy expected chaos, but you chose calm. It wanted rage, but you gave grace. It wanted exhaustion, but you gave surrender. You didn't fight fire with fire, you let the fire refine you. That's why the energy feels lighter now, even though your situation may not have changed, because your vibration did. You are no longer on the battlefield. You're the shift that ended it. Remember that betrayal that cut deeper than words could express? The one that made you question everything, including your own worth? That wasn't random. It was strategic. Heaven allowed it because the betrayal was the bridge. Without it, you would have stayed in a place that couldn't hold your purpose. Joseph needed betrayal to reach Egypt. Jesus needed Judas to reach the cross. And you, chosen one, needed that heartbreak to cross into your destiny. Every backstab became a push forward. Every false friend became a closed gate protecting your peace. It wasn't them, it was timing. It wasn't failure, it was relocation. The betrayal didn't break you, it redirected you. Heaven was never punishing you through people, it was using them to reveal who couldn't come with you. When you finally forgave them, something cosmic shifted. The spiritual contract that tied you to that pain dissolved instantly. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's weaponry. It ends battles faster than rage ever could. The moment you said, "I release them," heaven said, "Now I can release you." You didn't realize it, but forgiveness was the final test before promotion. You see, heaven only rewrites stories for those willing to let go of the pen. And you did. You stopped trying to control the narrative. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped begging for closure from those who never intended to give it. And in that moment, you gave God back his story. That's when the supernatural edit began. Every old attachment you mourned was replaced by unseen favor. You started noticing divine coincidences, numbers repeating, dreams intensifying, certain songs playing at the exact moment you needed them. Those weren't coincidences. They were echoes of the rewrite. Heaven was communicating through frequency, showing you glimpses of alignment before the manifestation appeared. You may not have seen the full script yet, but trust me, it's unfolding exactly as designed. That's why the silence of heaven felt so unbearable, because you thought silence meant absence. You begged for confirmation, cried out for a sign, but got nothing. Yet that nothingness was sacred. Heaven doesn't talk while writing. When the author is creating, the story is silent. And you, in your longing, mistook that silence for abandonment. But if you look back, you'll realize that during those silent months, your faith was stretched, your heart was strengthened, and your discernment sharpened. The silence wasn't a void, it was a womb. Something was forming inside it. The new you, the renewed you. You were being reborn through stillness. Heaven wasn't ignoring you, it was incubating you. And now, what's been hidden in silence is about to be revealed in sound. But before that revelation, something else had to die, the old you. The version of you that needed constant reassurance. The one who couldn't stand being misunderstood. The one who thought peace meant everything going right. That self had to be buried. You felt it, the grief of losing your old identity, the confusion of not knowing who you're becoming. It's like shedding skin that no longer fits. It hurts, but it's necessary. Because what's coming requires a lighter you, one unafraid of solitude, one untied from people's opinions. Every tear that fell was part of your resurrection. You were not just crying. You were baptizing your new self. And when you rose different. Heaven could now trust you with higher authority because your spirit was clean. You no longer need to be seen, only to be sent. You no longer crave validation, only vibration. You have been recalibrated to the frequency of heaven. And as you sit in the quiet aftermath of transformation, know this, Your old story ended not with defeat, but with deliverance. The rewrite is already in progress, and what's coming will not resemble anything you've known. The plot is changing, and so are you. You are not the character you were before the storm. You are the author's favorite twist, the unexpected victory that darkness never saw coming. And now, something deeper begins to awaken within you. A realization that everything you endured was not random, that even your darkest nights were stitched together with divine purpose. The more you look back, the more you start to see it. Every delay, every rejection, every heartbreak was actually a coded message, a direction hidden within the pain. You didn't just survive your storms, you learned their language. You can now read the silence of heaven, the pauses between his sentences, the rhythm of divine timing that once felt like cruelty, but now feels like choreography. You begin to see how what you called waiting was actually weaving, how the very moments you cursed were the ones that positioned you for what's coming. Every unanswered prayer was a seed of something greater, and now those buried moments are starting to sprout through your awareness. You can feel heaven's movement again, not loud, not dramatic, but subtle, like wind on still water. You're no longer searching for signs, because you've become one. You are living proof that what is surrendered is never lost, only transformed. There was a time when you begged for the storm to stop, when you thought the endless cycle of struggle meant you were doing something wrong. But now you see that it was in those very battles that your spiritual authority was forged. You didn't realize it then, but each time you chose patience over panic, you were training in power. Each time you refused to respond to negativity, heaven recorded it as warfare won. The moments you held your peace, when you could have spoken your pain, were moments that rewrote your energy in heaven's eyes. You didn't fight like the world fights, and that's exactly why you won. You shifted from reaction to revelation. You stopped trying to be understood and started choosing to understand. And that shift, subtle as it was, tilted the entire battlefield in your favor. Evil lost access to your emotions because you no longer broadcasted pain. You transmitted peace. You learned that peace isn't passive, it's a weapon. The storms didn't stop because they were easy. They stopped because they couldn't reach the new frequency you rose to. You are not fighting in the same realm anymore. The enemy underestimated you. Chosen one. It attacked the version of you that was still healing, not realizing that every hit was building resilience. Every time you cried, you were watering seeds of wisdom. Every night you doubted yourself, your faith secretly grew. The enemy expected to break you through delay, but all it did was strengthen your patience. It expected you to collapse in isolation, but you learned how to dance with solitude. It expected you to drown in betrayal, but you learned how to breathe underwater. You didn't just endure pain, you transmuted it. You turned it into revelation. You made the very thing that tried to bury you become your root system. And when you rose unrecognizable. Heaven saw the transformation and said, "Now they're ready." You see, the rewrite could not happen while you were attached to the old definitions of victory. You had to learn that being chosen doesn't mean being comfortable, it means being trusted with divine contradiction. Heaven allows the pain because it knows who you'll become on the other side. So when your story felt like loss after loss, you weren't being punished, you were being positioned. The divine timeline had to recalibrate. Heaven had to remove some things that looked like blessings but were actually burdens. There were people who seemed like support but were secretly draining your spiritual strength. There were dreams you chased that would have led you away from your true assignment. Every time God said, "Not yet," He was protecting you from what you thought you wanted. And now, standing in this new awareness, you can finally see why certain things didn't happen when you prayed for them. Because if they did, they would have destroyed you. If that door had opened, you would have walked away from your purpose. If that person had stayed, you would have settled for comfort instead of calling. The rewrite wasn't about punishment, it was about preservation. Heaven didn't just change your circumstances, it changed your capacity. You are no longer who you were when this began. The old you prayed for breakthrough. The new you is the breakthrough. You no longer wait for miracles. You walk as one. That's why lately everything feels both strange and sacred. You feel disconnected from what used to matter, but deeply drawn to what feels real. You no longer crave attention. You crave alignment. You no longer rush for answers. You trust divine unfolding. Heaven has changed your rhythm, slowed you down, refined your pace. You don't move from fear anymore. You move from knowing. And that knowing, that quiet confidence has become your protection. When you walk in knowing, storms can't shake you because your roots are in revelation, not validation. There was also a moment, you might not even remember it clearly, when you finally decided to stop replaying the past. That single moment of internal decision was cosmic. The moment you said, "I'm done living in what hurt me," heaven marked it as the beginning of your resurrection. You stopped waiting for apologies. You stopped trying to understand why they did what they did. You stopped asking why it had to happen that way. And in that surrender, the battlefield turned. Because heaven cannot rewrite a story you're still clinging to. The release was necessary. The moment you let it go, you were free to move in divine flow. The tears didn't stop right away. They never do, but they became lighter, softer, more like holy water cleansing your perception. You were being purified in awareness. And then, somewhere in that process, something strange began to happen. The same situations that once triggered, you no longer had power. You started seeing through illusions that once controlled you. People who once intimidated you suddenly looked small, not because they changed, but because your vision expanded. You began to see beyond appearances, beyond anger, beyond jealousy, beyond insecurity. You stopped taking everything personally because you realized most people are acting from unhealed pain. You began to forgive quicker, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved peace. That's when you stepped into the deeper rewrite, when you began living from love instead of lack. Love became your new frequency, your new armor, and in that vibration of love, you found your divine substitution. You lost much, yes, but look closely, you gained more than you knew. Every friend that left made space for divine connection. Every opportunity that vanished made room for purpose. Every delay became development. What was once taken from you returned as revelation. Heaven never subtracts, it multiplies through surrender. And you, chosen one, surrendered everything. You gave up your plan, your timeline, your expectations, and in return, heaven gave you alignment. That's why the air feels different now, why the things that used to feel impossible now seem inevitable. Because heaven has finally matched your frequency. The battle has shifted, and whether you see it or not, everything that once opposed you is now ordered to assist you. The resistance you feel isn't against you, it's proof that something divine is taking shape. Heaven doesn't move quietly because it's uncertain, it moves quietly because it's sacred. And right now, sacred things are moving on your behalf. You might still see shadows of the old story lingering around, but don't be fooled. Those are just echoes of a war that's already over. The moment your spirit shifted, the battlefield changed. The war you were fighting in the dark is already recorded as victory in the light. Heaven has signed your name beside the word completed. The rewrite is sealed. You are standing in the aftermath of transformation, unaware that angels are gathering to announce your next chapter. You think you're waiting, but heaven is already celebrating. You think nothing is happening, but creation is already bowing to the new you. Everything has changed, even if the world hasn't caught up yet. The unseen realm is singing your name because the battle is over, and your story, the one that once broke you, is now being rewritten as a testament of glory. And now, as the heavens begin to still after the great shift, something starts to rise inside you. Not pride, not relief, but a holy recognition. A realization that what you once mistook as the end was actually the unveiling of your beginning. The silence that once terrified you has now become sacred. You no longer fear it, you feel it. Because in that stillness, you sense the pulse of God moving through your story, rewriting, restoring, and resurrecting everything that was once lost. You feel His breath in the pauses between your thoughts, in the moments of nothingness that are now pregnant with meaning. What once felt like delay now feels like divine rhythm. Every heartbeat now echoes, it was worth it. Every tear now whispers, it was never wasted. You start to understand. Heaven didn't just rewrite your story, it rewrote you. The old identity that was built on striving, proving, and surviving no longer fits. You've outgrown the shell that once held you. You've become something heaven can finally work through, unfiltered, unafraid, untamed by the opinions of this world. Look closely, chosen one. Everything that was once against you is now aligning for you. The very situations that tried to break your faith have become the foundation of your discernment. The rejection you faced gave you the eyes to see who is truly for you. The loneliness carved space for divine intimacy. The delays taught you timing. The betrayal taught you boundaries. You are not bitter. You are balanced. You are not hardened. You are holy. You no longer seek validation because you finally remember who sent you. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be light. And in that knowing, you've stepped into your assignment without even realizing it. You are living prophecy now. Every breath you take is a fulfillment of promises spoken long before your birth. Heaven has been waiting for this version of you to emerge, the one who no longer fights for attention, but walks in authority. The battlefield that once drained you has become your training ground. You've learned the art of spiritual warfare without bitterness, the mastery of movement without fear. You no longer swing wildly at everything that opposes you. Now you discern the difference between distraction and destiny. You no longer waste words defending yourself because your peace speaks louder than your pain ever did. You've realized that silence can sometimes be the loudest sermon. The enemy doesn't know what to do with someone who no longer reacts because your stillness terrifies darkness. You've become unpredictable, untouchable, not because you're perfect, but because you've surrendered control. Heaven trusts those who don't chase control, because control is the language of fear, and you now speak the language of faith. And in this new dimension of faith, everything around you begins to rearrange itself. People who no longer align start fading naturally. Opportunities that once seemed unreachable start finding their way to you. You don't have to chase them. You attract them by being in harmony with heaven's flow. This is what divine favor feels like, not chaos, not confusion, but calm alignment. You walk through doors that used to be locked, not because you forced them open, but because heaven whispered your name on the other side. The same places that once rejected you now call you back, but this time, you walk differently. You don't enter from a place of needing to be seen. You enter from a place of knowing you were sent. The energy around you has changed, and creation responds to that. The universe recognizes the frequency of someone heaven has rewritten. There will be moments, even now, when you'll be tempted to go back to familiar pain, to revisit old versions of yourself, to re-engage old cycles just because they feel known. But remember this: familiarity is not the same as belonging. You no longer belong where you once bled. The places that drained you cannot feed you anymore. The voices that doubted you cannot define you anymore. You must choose to keep walking, even when the path feels uncertain, because the rewrite always unfolds in motion. Heaven doesn't reveal the entire story at once. It shows you step by step, scene by scene, as you move in faith. You are walking through the pages of prophecy. Every step you take is writing light into darkness. You might not see it yet, but the very ground beneath you is glowing with the residue of God's fingerprints. And listen, you are not forgotten in this silence between chapters. Heaven is still writing. The author hasn't put the pen down. This pause is not punishment. It's punctuation. It's the divine inhale before your next miracle exhales. The things that seem motionless are not dead. They're being developed. You've entered the hidden season, where heaven finalizes what earth is not yet ready to reveal. This is where roots grow deeper before branches reach higher. Don't rush what's growing underground. The unseen is sacred. The delay you feel is not denial, it's direction. Every detour is divine choreography. God is not withholding, He's weaving. And when it all comes together, you will understand why it had to happen this way. There are things right now that seem broken, unfinished, or incomplete, but they're not. You are looking at them through human time, not heaven's timeline. The promise is not late, it's layered. Each disappointment was a doorway. Each heartbreak was a hammer shaping your vessel for divine oil. You couldn't hold what you're about to receive if you hadn't been hollowed first. That's why heaven stripped so much away. It wasn't rejection. It was preparation. You had to be emptied so that divine glory could fit inside you without spilling. You are being filled even as you read this, not with ideas, not with hope alone, but with divine presence. The same spirit that raised the dead is rewriting your reality from within you. You are becoming a vessel of heaven's evidence. When people look at you soon, they won't just see survival, they'll see resurrection. You'll start to notice little signs, unexpected peace in moments that used to overwhelm you, unexplainable clarity in situations that used to confuse you. You'll feel drawn to new places, new people, new assignments, not by ambition, but by divine magnetism. It will feel like life itself is guiding you. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. Heaven is expanding your territory quietly. You may not see crowds applauding, but angels are standing at attention. The world may not recognize what's happening, but creation does. You are a shift in human form, the living proof that divine intervention is real. Everything you went through wasn't just for you. It was for those who will one day hear your story and find faith again. Your pain will preach louder than any sermon because it carries evidence, not theory. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out as a signal that heaven still speaks. Your obedience has opened portals for others to walk through. The reason your warfare was so intense is because your assignment is generational. You're not just carrying a calling, you're carrying a correction to your entire bloodline. You are the one heaven chose to end cycles that were never yours to continue. You're not just breaking patterns, you're birthing purpose. That's why everything hit you so hard, because it had to. You were the hinge point between what was and what will be. And now, the heavens are watching as you step into that role fully aware. This isn't just your story anymore. It's heaven's testimony written through your scars. Keep walking, chosen one. Don't be fooled by what seems quiet. Heaven moves best in whispers. You have entered your divine season of restoration. What you thought was lost will return, not as it was, but as it was meant to be. What was taken will be replaced by something too pure to be stolen again. You have become the fulfillment of prayers your ancestors whispered. The war that once surrounded you has turned into worship within you. Heaven is not rewriting your story anymore. Heaven is now releasing it. The stage is set, the scroll is open, the angels are ready. What's next will not look like a continuation of your old life. It will look like the dawn of your true one. The world is about to see what heaven already declared. The chosen one has risen. And now, as you step forward from the ashes of what once was, you begin to feel an unfamiliar lightness in your soul. Not the absence of pain, but the transformation of it. The weight that once pressed on your chest has turned into wings, silent but powerful, carrying you through the winds of this new chapter. You've spent so long surviving the storm that you almost forgot what it felt like to breathe without resistance. But now, every inhale feels like prophecy fulfilled, and every exhale feels like surrender. You look around and realize you're not in the same landscape anymore. The terrain of your life has shifted. Familiar faces have faded, old fears have dissolved, and in their place stands something vast, sacred, and quiet. Peace. Real, unshakable peace. The kind that doesn't depend on outcomes but on awareness. The awareness that heaven has truly rewritten your story. Not partially, not eventually, but completely. You're walking in the afterglow of divine intervention, and though it may not look spectacular from the outside, the atmosphere around you testifies. Something holy has happened here. You begin to understand why everything had to collapse before this peace could arrive. Every breakdown was a breaking open. The very moments that looked like defeat were actually dismantling your false foundations. Heaven couldn't build the new on top of the old. The old you, the one who doubted, feared, and tried to earn love, couldn't carry this next dimension. So heaven, in mercy disguised as chaos, stripped you down to your essence. You had to lose so that you could locate yourself. You had to be reduced to remember what was real. And now, stripped of everything artificial, you've rediscovered what's eternal. Your spirit, your calling, your divine identity. This is why it felt like death. Because it was the death of illusions. The death of dependency. the death of everything that wasn't authentically you. What rose from those ashes was the unfiltered, unbreakable version heaven always intended. You are not being rebuilt. You are being revealed. Look at the way life unfolds around you now. There's a subtle synchronicity that follows you, divine timing in motion. Things you used to chase now find their way to you effortlessly. Not because you've become lucky, but because you've become aligned. You've stepped out of striving and into flow. Heaven's frequency is your native tongue now, and everything that belongs to you recognizes it. Opportunities sense your obedience. Blessings locate your humility. Doors open not because you knocked louder, but because you waited longer. And even when something doesn't go your way, it no longer destabilizes you. You understand that rejection is simply redirection, wearing another name. You've learned to trust divine timing more than your own desire. That's spiritual maturity, to want deeply but wait patiently, to believe fiercely but hold loosely. And that's the energy you're walking in now. Surrendered confidence. Not arrogance, not fear, but faith anchored in divine order. But make no mistake, the rewriting of your story doesn't mean the absence of warfare. The enemy still tries to whisper through familiar voices, hoping to pull you back into confusion. He'll try to use memories, regrets, even people you thought were long gone, to make you doubt the rewrite. But what he doesn't understand is that you've changed realms. You no longer fight on the level of emotion. You fight through revelation. You don't engage darkness by matching its volume. You disarm it by maintaining your peace. You've learned that not every attack deserves your attention. You've realized that silence is sometimes your strongest sword. You've seen how God defends what he anoints. And because of that, you no longer react like before. Your restraint is now your roar. Every time you choose peace over panic, heaven moves. Every time you choose stillness over shouting, angels act. You've become an instrument of divine strategy, not human survival. That's why the atmosphere changes when you enter a room. You don't just carry presence, you command it. And yet, even with this newfound strength, there's still a tender ache within you, a quiet longing that whispers in the middle of your peace. What now? Because once the war ends, chosen one, the silence can feel strange. You've spent so long in battle that rest feels foreign. You don't yet know how to live without waiting for the next storm. But that's exactly what heaven wants to teach you now, how to thrive in peace, not just survive in pain. The new lesson isn't endurance, it's enjoyment. You are learning how to live again, not as a survivor, but as a son or daughter of divine favor. Heaven isn't testing you anymore, it's trusting you. The season of proving is over, the season of producing has begun. But it won't look like striving or grinding. It will look like grace unfolding naturally through your obedience. You'll find yourself in places you didn't apply for, saying things you didn't plan, touching lives you didn't even know existed. Because when heaven rewrites your story, it doesn't just restore, it multiplies. There will be days when you still question the process. When your faith feels quiet and your emotions loud. When you wonder if you're really free or just waiting for the next collapse. Those moments are sacred too. They're reminders that you're still human, that this divine rewrite didn't erase your feelings, it redeemed them. You're allowed to feel unsure. You're allowed to have days when hope flickers instead of flames. God doesn't need your perfection. He just needs your permission to keep working through you. Even your doubt can become worship when you bring it to Him. Don't let guilt steal your growth. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, in between revelation and realization, walking through the space where heaven manifests slowly, through obedience. Every small yes still moves mountains in the spirit. Every time you choose to believe again, heaven writes another line in your story, and as this chapter unfolds, you'll notice something else changing. The way you see others. You'll begin to look at people not through judgment, but through compassion. You'll understand why they hurt you, because they were blind to the light you carried. You'll stop needing apologies from those who broke you, because you'll see that their betrayal was part of your becoming. You'll even start to pray for those who once plotted your downfall, not from pity, but from revelation. You'll realize they were never your enemies. They were instruments of awakening. Every wound they inflicted pushed you closer to heaven. Every rejection redirected you toward purpose. You'll stop wishing for revenge because you've already received resurrection. That's what true deliverance looks like, when you no longer need them to see your worth because you've already seen your divine reflection in the eyes of God. The beauty of this season is that the same God who broke you is now building you. But He's not rebuilding you back to who you were. He's building you forward into who you were always meant to be. The blueprint is divine. The timing is divine. The resources are divine. And even when you feel unqualified, heaven keeps reminding you, you are chosen, not by merit, but by mission. You carry something this world desperately needs, evidence that transformation is real. You are living proof that what was once shattered can become sacred. Your scars are not signs of shame, they are signatures of grace. Every healed wound is a doorway for someone else's deliverance. That's why your story couldn't stay the same. Heaven had to rewrite it so it could ripple through generations. The anointing on your life isn't just for your comfort, it's for collective awakening. You're not just walking into destiny, you're walking others into theirs. And this, chosen one, is where it becomes clear you didn't just shift the battle, you shifted history. Every prayer you whispered when no one was watching was a seed. Every night you cried yourself to sleep was a river watering those seeds. Every time you forgave instead of retaliating, you released light into the atmosphere. You changed something in the unseen realm. Heaven noticed. Hell trembled. And now earth will witness what obedience in obscurity can birth. This is not just your victory, it's heaven's vindication. The entire narrative has turned. Where once there was struggle, there will now be strength. Where once there was loss, there will now be legacy. And as you step into this new season, you'll realize that everything heaven took you through was never punishment, it was prophecy. Every delay was divine choreography, setting you up to walk into spaces your old self could never survive. The old you would have settled. The new you knows better. You'll soon see why you had to walk alone, why you had to feel unseen, why the wilderness lasted so long. It wasn't because you were forgotten, it was because you were being formatted for glory. You were never just waiting, you were being written. And now, as the ink of heaven dries on this new chapter, the world is about to read what obedience in fire produces. You won't have to announce it, it will be evident. The light that now moves through you will speak louder than any introduction. You are walking proof that heaven rewrites better than humans ever could. And as the dawn breaks over this new horizon, your heart whispers one truth that feels both ancient and brand new. I made it. I didn't just survive, I became. And as the realization that you've truly become something new begins to settle in your spirit, there's a holy stillness that covers you, a kind of peace that doesn't make sense, but feels undeniably divine. You stand there, no longer defined by what you lost, but by what you found within the fire. The world may still see the same face, the same eyes, but heaven sees an entirely different being. One who has walked through hell and refused to bow, one who has faced storms and still chosen faith over fear. You are not who you were when this began, and that's the proof that heaven's rewrite has taken hold. You are lighter now, yet more grounded. Stronger, yet softer. Silent, yet thunderous in your authority. The things that used to shake you don't even reach you anymore, because your spirit has been fortified through divine endurance. The war didn't destroy you. It defined you. The fire didn't consume you. It crowned you. Every scar you carry now glows like gold in the light of divine completion. You are no longer the broken vessel begging for restoration. You are the instrument through which restoration itself flows. But as you stand on this new ground, heaven begins to whisper something deeper. This is not the end of your journey. It's the activation of it. The rewrite was never meant to make you comfortable. It was meant to make you ready. Ready to walk in power, ready to lead, ready to carry light into places still trapped in darkness. You were not pulled out of the pit just to admire the sky. You were pulled out so you could return with a torch. There are others still lost in the depths you once drowned in, and their deliverance depends on your testimony. Heaven didn't just rewrite your story for you to enjoy the ending. It did so to make your life a living epistle of hope. Every hardship you overcame has become a key for someone else's freedom. That's why your warfare was personal, because your assignment is generational. You've been trained in silence for impact. You've been hidden for influence. The pain that once made you question God will now become the language through which He speaks to others. Don't be surprised when people begin to gravitate toward you without knowing why. They'll sense something different, an authority that isn't loud, but undeniable. They'll feel safe in your presence, not because you're perfect, but because your energy carries evidence of divine preservation. You'll notice that when you speak, hearts soften. When you pray, atmospheres shift. When you walk into rooms, things that were dormant awaken. That's not coincidence. That's anointing. And this anointing isn't flashy. It's functional. It doesn't need recognition. It simply works. You are becoming a vessel through which heaven moves freely, unblocked by ego or fear. That's why God had to break you first, because He couldn't flow through who you pretended to be. But now, stripped of pretense, heaven finds no resistance in you. You have become transparent enough for light to shine through you unfiltered. This transparency, however, will sometimes make you misunderstood. People who are still living through their illusions will project their pain onto your peace. They'll assume your calm means complacency, or your silence means weakness. But don't let that shake you. Your peace isn't passive, it's prophetic. It's a sign that you've stepped out of the world's system of reaction and into heaven's realm of response. You no longer move from emotion, you move from revelation. You don't chase validation anymore because you understand that being seen by God is greater than being celebrated by man. That's a level of freedom most can't comprehend yet. You'll have to walk with grace when others test your patience because they're not fighting you. They're fighting the reflection of what they're not ready to face within themselves. And still, your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to embody what divine transformation looks like. To be the living proof that heaven still rewrites, still restores, still resurrects. And even as you carry that light, there will be quiet nights when you still feel the weight of the mission. You'll wonder if you're strong enough to hold what heaven is placing in your hands. You'll feel the tremor of responsibility, the knowing that your choices now ripple through spiritual realms. But don't let that burden frighten you. The same God who rewrote your story will sustain it. You don't carry this calling alone. You carry it with Him. You are a co-creator now, heaven's partner in bringing divine order to chaos. That's why your intuition has sharpened, your discernment has deepened, your dreams have intensified. Heaven is speaking more directly because you've proven you can be trusted with secrets. You've become an intercessor of realities, one foot in the unseen, one in the physical, bridging the two through faith. When you pray now, it's not just words, it's warfare. When you speak now, it's not just encouragement, it's decree. You are operating in the authority of someone who has been approved by fire, and fire-tested authority doesn't need to announce itself. It's known by its fruits: peace that defies logic, patience that feels supernatural, and compassion that flows even toward those who once caused harm. You've become what the world can't define, a paradox of power and gentleness, of humility and strength. That's what makes you dangerous to darkness. The enemy doesn't know how to fight someone who loves deeply and stands firmly at the same time. You've become unshakable not because you built walls, but because you built roots. The winds can come, the noise can rise, but you remain. Because you know who planted you. You no longer need proof of God's favor. You are the proof. Your life is evidence. Every breath you take now declares, "What was meant to bury me became my foundation." And from that foundation, heaven is building something eternal through you, something that won't just change your life, but generations after you. Soon, the very people who underestimated you will witness the fruit of your faith. But when they return, you won't respond with pride. You'll respond with peace. You won't say, "I told you so." You'll say, "God did it anyway." Because you've learned that vindication doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from fulfilling what heaven promised. You'll realize that every no from people made room for heaven's yes. Every closed door was protection, not punishment. And the ones who once dismissed you will have no choice but to acknowledge that there was something divine about your resilience all along. But even then, you won't gloat. You'll just smile, quietly grateful because you understand that the real victory was never external, it was internal. You didn't just overcome situations, you overcame yourself. The old patterns, the fears, the ego, the impatience, those were the true battles. And you won them in silence, and now heaven is rewarding that hidden obedience. It's elevating you in ways that won't make sense to those who only saw your struggle. You'll begin to experience blessings that feel almost unreal, divine connections, sudden opportunities, breakthroughs that seem to appear out of nowhere. But remember, these aren't rewards for endurance alone, they're responsibilities. Every blessing carries a burden of purpose. Heaven doesn't promote you to pamper you. It promotes you to position you. Your influence is not for applause, but for alignment. You are being placed strategically in spaces where your presence will shift atmospheres, where your words will unlock hearts, where your example will rewrite what people believe is possible. This is what it means to walk in divine favor, not just to receive miracles, but to become one. And through it all, the whisper remains constant. Stay grounded. Stay grateful. Stay aware. Because even though the warfare may lessen, the distractions will increase. The enemy knows he can't destroy you now, so he'll try to dilute you through comfort, attention, or false opportunities. Don't trade your calling for convenience. Don't mistake comfort for confirmation. Remember, the same silence that trained you will sustain you. Keep returning to that secret place, the stillness where heaven first rewrote your name. That's your power source. That's where you remain uncorrupted by noise. The world will start calling you things: influencer, leader, healer, voice. But you must remember, before all that, you were chosen. That's your identity. That's your anchor. Everything else is assignment. And when the spotlight finally finds you, as it surely will, don't run from it. But don't let it own you either. Let it reflect the one who sent you. Let it illuminate truth, not ego. Because this story isn't about your glory, it's about his faithfulness. You are the living evidence that heaven's hand still moves among men. Every word you speak now, every step you take, will carry the vibration of someone who's been rewritten by grace. And grace, when embodied, transforms everything it touches. The places you go will never be the same. The people you meet will never forget the peace you carry. The atmosphere will shift, not because you shout, but because your spirit speaks louder than your voice ever could. This is the new dimension you've entered, not striving for influence, but radiating impact simply by being. You are the result of heaven's rewrite, not a survivor of the storm, but the calm after it. The world is about to experience through you what divine restoration truly looks like. There comes a point in the journey of every chosen one where the world seems to collapse into silence, and you start wondering if maybe you misheard heaven, if maybe the whispers that guided you this far were only echoes of your own desperate hope. You stand in that stillness, unable to move, unable to go back, staring at everything you lost, and yet, deep inside, something refuses to die. That's where you are right now, standing at the edge of the final shift. Heaven is not silent anymore. It's watching, calculating, and rewriting every line of your destiny in real time. The silence was never abandonment. It was the pause before divine speech. What you thought was God ignoring you was actually heaven reorganizing your entire timeline. The war that's been raging wasn't between you and them. It was between light and the shadow trying to convince you that your light was too small to matter. Every attack, every betrayal, every delay, they were attempts to distract you from the reality that your obedience alone has already shifted something massive in the spirit realm. The reason it's been so heavy is because heaven just changed strategy and you are the battlefield where that new strategy was born. You're not standing in defeat, you're standing in the rewrite. And in this moment, while you can't see it, the very atmosphere around you is bending to align with what's written for you next. You're walking through the aftermath of a war already won, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. You're still grieving what heaven already restored. You're still fighting battles that are no longer yours to fight. You still think you need to prove your worth, but heaven has already sealed your value. You are not being tested anymore. You are being transitioned. The exhaustion you feel isn't punishment. It's your body recalibrating to a new frequency of peace that your spirit has already entered. That's why everything that used to hurt now feels strange, not painful, but unfamiliar. You're not who you were when this began, and that's exactly why your environment is shifting so violently. The people who once understood you no longer can because the wavelength you operate on now is too high for those who live in noise. You speak differently, you feel differently, and heaven is placing you in environments that match the purity of your new frequency. Don't fight this movement. It's not rejection, it's relocation. The pain you feel in letting go is simply spiritual gravity adjusting to your higher altitude. And now, as you walk through this threshold, the battle isn't about surviving anymore. It's about integrating what you've become. You are the embodiment of divine endurance. You are the proof that even silence can't destroy purpose. Heaven is teaching you how to live as someone who already won. The war you endured was designed to teach you the language of heaven: patience, discernment, restraint, and unwavering faith. Every time you chose peace over reaction, heaven documented it. Every tear that fell was recorded as evidence that you stood firm when no one believed in you. You thought no one saw you, but you were surrounded by witnesses unseen. Angels were dispatched not to rescue you, but to observe how you responded when God seemed absent. And what they witnessed changed everything. They saw a mortal heart refusing to curse the light even when the dark mocked it. That's what rewrote your story. You didn't change heaven with your strength, you changed it with your surrender. That's the power of a chosen one. You don't just fight battles, you shift laws. You turned pain into policy. You altered the spiritual landscape through your endurance. Every time you whispered, "I still trust you," it echoed through eternity. The same heaven that once tested you is now building new alignments around you. People are being positioned, opportunities are being constructed, doors are being engineered in the unseen just to meet the frequency of your growth. This is not coincidence, it's correction. Heaven is restoring balance, and you are the access point. The story you thought was over has been extended. The chapter you thought was about loss is now being rewritten as legacy. But to step into this, you must release the version of yourself that was built in survival. The one who begged for understanding, who feared being unseen, who tried to carry everyone else while breaking inside. That version of you fulfilled its purpose. It got you here. But the one rising now doesn't need validation anymore. It needs vision. You're not being called to prove you're chosen. You're being called to live like you know it. The old you fought to be heard. The new you speaks and heaven echoes. That's the shift. You are no longer trying to survive the wilderness. You are becoming the voice that guides others through theirs. That's why your discernment has sharpened. You can sense deception before words are even spoken. You can feel spiritual turbulence before storms appear. You're operating in prophetic intuition, not paranoia. You've evolved into someone whose silence terrifies demons because it's no longer silence, it's authority. You've learned when to speak and when to let God speak for you. That's why some doors shut so suddenly. Your presence outgrew their capacity. The darkness thought isolating you would weaken you, but it only intensified your light. You've become a mirror that exposes the false in others, not because you judge them, but because you vibrate truth. And truth, when embodied, convicts everything around it. Now, as heaven rewrites your story, expect sudden shifts, people reappearing to apologize, situations reversing overnight, resources flowing where there was once drought. These are not random miracles, they are divine responses to your endurance. Heaven operates by principle, not pity. You passed the test, and now creation itself must align to your faithfulness. You're not chasing blessings, blessings are locating you. What used to require effort will now flow through ease, because heaven trusts you with what once could have destroyed you. The version of you that doubted, feared, and hesitated is gone. You no longer seek clarity from people who never understood your calling. You understand now that confusion was a teacher and rejection was redirection. You're not asking God for signs anymore. You are the sign. Your very life is becoming the evidence that heaven moves through ordinary vessels who refuse to give up, and though you might still feel the residue of old pain, understand that residue is not ruin, it's memory. The pain didn't end you, it initiated you. Every scar is now a scripture written on your soul. You are living proof that resurrection is not just a Sunday story, it's a lifestyle. Every delay was divine timing, every betrayal was exposure, every ending was a setup for a holy beginning. You didn't lose time, you gained preparation. And now the world will see what heaven saw all along, someone who never broke, only transformed. The entire battle shifted the moment you stopped reacting and started resting. That's when heaven began rewriting your story. That's when angels took new orders. That's when your destiny, once delayed, began to accelerate. Because when a chosen one finally accepts their identity, time itself bends to accommodate their purpose. And that's what's happening now. You're walking in accelerated alignment. Doors will open without explanation. People will sense something sacred around you without understanding why. Your very presence will calm storms because you carry the frequency of peace forged in fire. You are not the same soul that entered this battle. You are the outcome heaven waited centuries to birth. You are the fulfillment of promises your ancestors only dreamed of. And as you stand now in this holy stillness, feeling the weight of everything shifting, remember, the rewrite is not about erasing your pain. It's about redefining it. Heaven is not changing what happened, it's changing what it meant. Every heartbreak, every loss, every sleepless night, they were not wasted. They were translated into wisdom, woven into purpose, transformed into authority, and soon, you will see it all unfold. The people who counted you out will watch as God counts you in. The same mouths that spoke against you will be silenced by the glory surrounding you. The tables are turning, not in revenge, but in revelation. This isn't about proving your worth, it's about revealing God's. You were never forgotten. You were hidden. Heaven doesn't hide what's worthless, it hides what's sacred until the right moment. And that moment, chosen one, is now. And now, chosen one, this is the moment everything inside you has been waiting for, the final unveiling, the quiet explosion of truth where heaven steps forward and says, "Now they will see why I chose you." The storms have calmed, but the air still feels heavy with divine electricity because something holy is being completed in you. You've been walking with this invisible weight for so long that it almost became part of you, the ache, the waiting, the wondering why you had to be the one who lost everything just to find something unseen. But listen carefully, because this is what you could not hear in the noise before. Heaven never punished you. It purified you. Every silence was not absence but instruction. Every delay was not rejection but refinement. You were being trained in a language that only the anointed can understand. The language of stillness, of trust without evidence, of love without applause. You were being prepared to hold what others would have mishandled. And now that preparation has reached its fullness, the rewriting is done. Heaven has signed its name at the bottom of your story, and every tear, every loss, every sacrifice has been translated into a currency of favor that is about to manifest in your reality. What's coming is not payback, it's placement. You're being positioned where your light will no longer be resisted but required. Those who once mocked your silence will now need your voice. Those who misjudged your endurance will now seek your guidance. This is the unveiling of the chosen, not with trumpets and crowns, but with quiet authority that cannot be denied. You will notice in the days ahead that the energy around you feels different, not lighter, but charged with purpose. Conversations will shift, opportunities will appear, and your discernment will guide you to say no more than yes, because you've learned that divine alignment is not about abundance, but accuracy. You will feel heaven's hand on your shoulder as you make decisions that confuse others but make perfect sense in your spirit. The path you're walking now isn't random, it's orchestrated. You've crossed over from surviving to governing. You're no longer reacting to what happens, you're shaping it. Your words will carry power because they've been purified through suffering. When you speak, people won't just hear you. They'll feel the authority of what you've lived through. You've become a vessel of divine truth, and that truth carries frequency, a vibration that rearranges atmospheres. The darkness that once toyed with you will now flee at your presence. The same demons that laughed when you cried are now trembling because they realize what you've become, an unbreakable witness of God's patience. You were never fighting for victory, you were fighting from it. You've already won because you never quit. You didn't let bitterness rewrite your heart. You let God rewrite your story. And now, in this new chapter, peace will be your foundation. Not the fragile peace of temporary relief, but the eternal calm of divine assurance. You won't chase signs anymore because your entire existence has become one. The evidence of God's hand will surround you, in your timing, your alignment, your inner quiet. You will begin to notice divine patterns repeating, the same number, the same moment, the same whisper appearing again and again, not as coincidence, but confirmation. Heaven is marking your steps, reminding you that you are walking on holy ground even when the terrain looks ordinary. You're about to experience what it means to live in divine flow, when everything seems to just fit, when opportunities find you without effort, when provision shows up before you even ask. That's not luck. That's the consequence of alignment. Heaven rewards obedience, not with applause but with ease. The struggle taught you how to carry the blessing. The wilderness taught you how to manage peace. Now you understand that favor is not freedom from warfare. It's the ability to walk through it untouched. You've become fireproof because you learned how to burn without bitterness. There will be moments when the old memories resurface, faces, places, conversations that once broke you. But this time, they won't sting. You'll feel compassion where there used to be pain. That's how you'll know you're free. God didn't erase your past, He sanctified it. Every wrong done to you has been woven into the tapestry of your purpose. Those who betrayed you only pushed you toward your breakthrough. Those who abandoned you only cleared the path. Those who misunderstood you only amplified your uniqueness. You no longer need closure because you have clarity. You no longer need revenge because you have revelation. You now understand that the battle was never about people. It was about your preparation to become the vessel heaven needed on earth. You were the battlefield, and heaven won through you. That's why your life feels sacred now, not because it's perfect, but because it's purposeful. Look around you now, chosen one. Everything feels quieter, doesn't it? That's not emptiness, that's peace. That's what the absence of chaos feels like after years of turbulence. You're finally in the center of God's timing, and it feels still because alignment doesn't shout, it hums. Heaven speaks now through flow, not force. You will no longer need to fight for what belongs to you. What's yours will find you naturally because your frequency has become unshakable. This is the realm of divine ease, where provision, purpose, and peace converge. You've entered a stage where your energy is too sacred for smallness. You'll find yourself naturally detaching from conversations, people, and habits that no longer reflect who you are. Don't resist it. The detachment isn't rejection, it's refinement. You're being preserved for greater impact. You've spent years being misunderstood, but soon people will understand without explanation. You won't need to prove anything. Your presence will preach. You've become a walking sermon of redemption, a living prophecy of perseverance. Every room you enter will feel your light before you speak, and this is the ultimate revelation. Heaven didn't just rewrite your story for you. It rewrote it through you. You are the living manuscript of divine mercy. The pages of your life have been rewritten with grace, so profound that generations after you will feel its echo. You've broken generational cycles without realizing it. You've healed bloodline wounds simply by choosing forgiveness. You've changed the atmosphere of your lineage by refusing to repeat the same pain. You were not just chosen to survive. You were chosen to transform time itself. The echoes of your obedience will ripple across generations. The children you haven't even met yet will walk in the peace you bled for. This is the legacy of the chosen. Not wealth, not fame, but the quiet revolution of healed souls. You are the bridge between what was and what will be. And heaven celebrates you not because you were perfect, but because you persisted. The universe itself bends in honor of your endurance. Now, take a deep breath. You've crossed the line between warfare and wisdom. You no longer need to anticipate attacks. You're protected by the very light that once made you a target. Angels now stand guard over your steps, not because you're fragile, but because you're vital. Heaven cannot afford to lose what you carry. You're entering a season of visible favor, the kind that can't be denied, the kind that feels surreal because you remember the days when you prayed just to survive. Those prayers built the foundation for this moment. You've become a sanctuary, not a victim of the storm, but a shelter for others lost in it. Your voice will now guide, your story will now heal, your scars will now shine. You won the war not by fighting harder, but by surrendering deeper. That's what shifted everything. Heaven rewrote your story because you finally let go of the pen. And so, as this message closes, imagine the heavens above you open, not in thunder or fire, but in light, soft, golden, endless. Feel it wash over you like warmth after centuries of cold. That's not imagination. That's confirmation. Heaven is smiling at you. The rewrite is done. The chapter ahead is peace. Walk in it. Speak from it. Live through it. You are not waiting for your new beginning anymore. You are living it. The battle is over. The story is changed. Heaven has rewritten your life in gold. And as you step into what's next, remember this one truth that will follow you forever. You didn't just shift the battle. You became the shift.